Hiya, okay, so in this video we're going to look at how you focus cut identifiable motifs within your half-hexagon medal shape. And I'm calling them identifiable motifs rather than whole motifs because I'll show you in a bit, but basically you can still get a majority of the motif but not all of it and it still be identifiable. It'll probably make more sense if I show you it. So I'm going to start off with the tools. So your acrylic template is going to be your best friend. Generally I find that when focus cutting, I don't just mean in general life, but if so, that's fine. Paper templates, I've got needle, basting thread, which is just a cheap thread, no branded thread for doing that, and then your fabric scissors and fabric clips. And again, this is just the way I like to do it, and you can do it the way that works for you. These are just my preferences. So we're going to look at doing this one first. So there are a couple of ways you can do it, and you can either do it across the width of the half hexagon or you can do it along the length of the half hexagon. So if you do the length first, and this works really nice kind of with those longer shapes. So I'm using this beautiful floral fabric. So what you're going to do is you're going to place your template on top of the motif that you want to cut. And then once you've got it on there, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you it right in the middle of the fabric. So say I wanted to go for, trying to find the one that I want, this one here. But it's right in the middle of the fabric, and obviously you don't want to cut all the way in because that would be a waste of fabric. So what you want to do is make sure you're holding the acrylic template on top of the fabric, and I'm just going to snip into the fold of the fabric there, and then this means I'm not going to waste anything by cutting all the way across the fabric. I then use the acrylic template as a guide and cut all the way around. My acrylic template's got a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I find that seam allowance really helps, especially when you're focus cutting, because it just gives you that wiggle room that you need if the placement goes a bit off, like mine sometimes does. So you want to turn your fabric over, we've cut it out, we've used the acrylic template, you turn it over to the wrong side, and again I put the template back on top because I want to make sure that I get it in. Let me just lock the camera into focus there. I want to make sure that I've got it right in the centre of that half hexagon, so you can see it that way. And then what I do is making sure you've got it in the right place. I'm holding it on this edge, front and back, and I've let the fabric fall open here. I then slide the paper template in between, and that's when you can then make sure you're lining it up in the lines on your acrylic template, which means that you're lining up your paper template exactly where you want it to be, where you cut it. And I haven't let go of the paper template. If I turn it over, I haven't let go of it there, so I'm still holding on to it. I'm going to slide my thumb in so it's holding the paper template in place, and then remove the acrylic. And then again, because I want to make sure I've got it in just the right place now, so I'm going to use lots of these clips now to hold it into place. And again, this is why I prefer to use the clips rather than pins, because it just means there's less wiggle room. And exactly the same way that we basted on my previous video. I've got a piece of basting thread, I've got a couple of knots in the end, and I'm just going to fold it over, take the needle down and come back up. And I'm not using any special sort of needle or special sort of thread. I'm just kind of using what's to hand really. I tend to use a specific needle when I'm sewing it together, and then any needle I can get my hand on generally for the basting part of it. And as I said in the previous video, you want to go down on your corners and come up on the lengths. And then tie a knot in it, snip your thread, and you've basted an identifiable motif for your half hexagon. And if you do them all that way, you get 6, and then what you'll do is you'll create like an in the round frame, so they're all going in the same direction, so they'll all be going round like that. The other option that you can do is this way. So I've cut them going in alternate directions. So that one would go there. Just make sure I've locked it back into place again. And then because you want the other flower to go towards it, whereas before we cut it that way, let me find the flower. So before we cut it like that, if you want them to face towards each other, you just turn your template by 180 degrees. And then by the time you've cut that, that means you've got the two heads of the petals facing each other. The other option you can do is when you cut on the width like that, and again I would choose, find it here, so this sort of shape works really nicely. It might be that lengthwise you're kind of missing off some of the flowers, so sometimes this works really well that way. And again you can do, so I've got the flowers here at the shorter part of the template, which means that all the flowers, when they've gone in the round, they'll all face into the centre of your hexagon, but you could also do it this way, so then it'd look like the flowers are radiating outwards from there. So like this one where the ice pops are facing in, or you could do it with the ice sticks that way, and that would give you that sort of shape. So you kind of go all the way around. The other option I wanted to talk about was this one, where you line it up here. So rather than going across the length or across the width, we're using the points of our half hexagon. And again, I'll show you what I mean by doing this. So we're going for this flower here, and I'd want to use your template here. You want to line up the point of whatever the motif is that you're cutting with the point of your hexagon here. So I'm placing the template on, I'm making sure the edge of my template is right on the edge of the motif that I want to cut. Again, this is in the middle of the fabric, so I'm just going to make a snip in rather than cutting across the whole thing. And I'm cutting around again, making sure not to snip into another motif that I might want to use. And in the same way that we did before, so we've cut that out, we've lined it up against the point, and that's at the longest edge. So flip it over, put your template on, and again the bit I'm really focusing on here is this corner. So I'm lining up the corner of my template on the wrong side of the fabric. I'm letting that edge fall open, sliding my paper template inside, not letting go of this corner, holding it into place and taking the acrylic off. And I'm going to clip it slightly differently this time, because I really want to make sure, see if I can get it back in focus again, because I really want to make sure that this edge is going to line up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clip the other three edges, which gives me a bit of wiggle room on this bit here, just so I can really make sure that I've got it right. And because I'm trying really hard to get this in the right point, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on here, and you can kind of dig a nail in, and before I start basting I'm just going to turn it over to check, and I can see that I've lined up that point, so that's perfect. That means that you're good to go. If I can find my basting needle here. So with your basting thread, in the same way that we've done before, I'm actually going to start on this corner, because this is the corner that I really want to make sure is in shape. In place. So I'm going to base this corner here, and I've literally gone down and come up kind of a tiny stitch here, and that's just because I really want to make sure that's held in place. And then I just go around and baste, and it's exactly the same way that we did before. And I'm not too worried about the precision in the other edges, because it's that edge that I really want to make sure lines up well. And then when you tie the knot in it, you have lined up this edge here really beautifully. And then what you can do is you can do it, see if I can get it here. So if you did it all the way around, it would look like you formed a vine shape because they'd all be coming out from that corner going across. Or the other option, in the same way that we alternated with that flower before, do you remember I said you can do them all the same way like that, or you can alternate them like that. You can alternate it with this corner. So whereas before we went for this, as you look at it, the wider left corner, if you then cut it on the, let's see, right here. So before I did it on the widest left corner, I'm now going to turn it and alternate it so it goes on the widest right corner. And then what that can do is it can give you a really fun, like, see here how the two shapes are, see if I can lift it up, should match them up like that, and it'd look like they're both radiating out from the same point. So either way works. I mean, you can do it, so that would be it if they were all coming out in the same direction. As you can see, it creates a really nice kind of like vine effect. Or the other option would be to alternate it. And in the same way that we went for the two wider corners, you can do the same thing on that inside corner. So like I've done it here. So you can see it just creates slightly different effects here, whether you focus cut the motif so it comes out from the widest corner inwards, or you can do it from the smallest corner outwards, or going in the round, or going all in the round. And the last thing I wanted to show was it being identifiable but not necessarily being a whole motif. So we've looked at the whole flowers, which are beautiful, but say you had a fabric like this that you really wanted to use, but it's not going to fit in your template, there's no way you can get the whole of that shape on there. You can still take a majority, or not even a majority, like you can still get enough of the motif that it would be identifiable. So like this one here, I've basted, and I haven't got, let's see if I can get that in focus, so I haven't got all of the motif by any means, but I've got enough that on the block you'd be able to see what the motif was. So the main thing I would say is just have a play, just have fun. These are just some of the ideas for how you can focus cut identifiable motifs, whether they're whole motifs or whether they're part of a motif but still identifiable. And you can do in the round but alternating, all in the round, part of the hexagons, or the radiating out from different points. So have a play, have a go, see which style you prefer, and I can't wait to see what you make.